Welcome back to another episode of TheWorryWartGamer. There's a lot of questions as to whether or not Microsoft is going to dominate the entirety of the industry with all of the money and all of the acquisitions, and if PlayStation can survive in its current form, only pumping out huge AAA narrative-driven single-player experiences. And I think that there's a way to look at this that many people aren't. A lot of people are pushing this idea of a monopoly. If Microsoft owns everything, they own publishers, some of the biggest publishers in the world, that somehow, PlayStation is going to be squeezed out of the market and there's going to be no room for PlayStation or anything that they do. There are all different kinds of monopolies. So what I'm looking at it as, Call of Duty isn't that interesting to me. I'm not really interested in the cornerstone of a console's experience being a shooter, even if it's the most popular shooter on the planet. Now, I'm aware that what I like isn't what the entire industry likes or what maybe you like, but I am also conscious of the fact that there has to be a diversity of content. And I think that big AAA single-player experiences, to me, have always been the driving force behind the console industry. You have these characters that you want to stay with from one generation to the next, these stories that you're interested in seeing through, Halo 1 to Halo 2 to Halo 3, huge time in the industry, huge game, huge character and worlds, and I'm interested in that. However, there's a trend lately with games that are half finished or almost finished that have this monetization scheme that keep you coming back and keep you spending, even though you think that you're having a great time. And you may be having a wonderful time with games like that. But I personally don't feel like they're going to lead to much creativity within the industry. And that's where this idea of a monopoly comes in for me. Because with Microsoft lately, it's been a while, they seem only interested in a very particular type of game. And if it's the type of game that you like, that's fine. But I fear that as this becomes more and more prevalent and people gravitate more and more towards these sort of meaningless online encounters and shooting and running around, friends list, I get it's fun, hopping in with your friends, competing, but ultimately an environment and a market cannot be healthy if every experience is the same in Apex Legends and Fortnite and everyone's chasing Minecraft, and then you have Call of Duty, and then you're going to have another shooter and another shooter and another battle royale mode, and it gets to the point where ultimately it's saturated and new experiences are needed. Now, at the same time, I understand that PlayStation's in the position where they don't have many experiences that are different than their traditional single-player, narrative-driven experiences, and they've recently purchased Bungie and Destiny, which is a huge live service game, so they are moving in the direction. I just want to make sure that while we're propping up the strength of one particular brand, because maybe we have a YouTube channel tied to that brand, and we sort of forget the fact that ultimately we want to have a choice. We want to have a healthy offering, not just what's good for our subscribers and likes. Ultimately, propping up one side for having something while at the same time, discounting another side for not having something is going to lead to just a market with the same something. It's going to be these clones of multiplayer-esque battle royale online live services, microtransactions, and sort of finish it, get it out, and we'll finish it later. Something else I'm not immune to is that most gamers now are younger and they want those experiences. Maybe they're not interested in games that push narrative, that create worlds and stories. Maybe they're just interested in the sort of feedback loop of shoot, win, like, subscribe, microtransaction. Maybe that is where the market is headed. But again, I want to stress that you cannot champion a market for going in one direction that your particular brand happens to maybe be strong in right now, because ultimately what you're asking for is what happened in the 80s when there was tons of competition with multiple consoles on the market, but everyone was making the same crap. And ultimately, no new experiences happened and people just decided they were done playing video games. I don't want that to happen. Now, I do think that PlayStation is in some hot water. I really do. I think that ultimately, once this acquisition goes through, Microsoft and these huge publishers, they have the leverage to squeeze everybody. And you might say, well, those games are going to go to PlayStation anyway. Sure. But the cost of getting the game there physically to PlayStation could go up. Microsoft can say, hey, how much were you spending to get this game to your platform before? physically. Well, it's going to go up by $1 or $2 or $3 or $10. Behind the scenes, they can say, look, the games are still going everywhere, but the supply costs go up through the roof because Microsoft may squeeze their competition to the point where it's just no longer feasible to spend that money. Ultimately, that'll lead PlayStation to have to create something to compete with Call of Duty. This is something else that I've seen a lot on social media, that PlayStation's complaining because, Call of Duty is going to Xbox. They could easily create something just as good as Call of Duty. I'm not sure why I have to explain this to people, especially if you're over the age of, say, 25 or 30. But sure, you can create something that looks as good and plays as good and has the same feel as Call of Duty, but you cannot create a brand overnight. You can go to the store, you can buy some corn syrup, you can buy some sugar, you can mix it all up, and you can make something that tastes just as good or better than Coca-Cola. However, you can't create the brand recognition that Coke has over years and years and years of being in a market and having consumers choose that. So that is the distinction. You're buying a brand that's established itself in a market, and consumers have chosen that over everything else. So yes, you can create something that looks just as good, like a Killzone Mercenary or a Killzone Shadowfall. But ultimately, looking good isn't going to get you brand recognition. And if you're fortunate enough to create something that looks good and plays just as good as Call of Duty, it takes years and years to get brand recognition. That's what Microsoft's buying. Ultimately, I do think that PlayStation may be in trouble in the future, and I'm curious to see what happens, but I'd like to know what you think in the comment section below. Are you interested in a market that's solely focused in on one thing? And I'm not saying Microsoft is only going to do Call of Duty and shooters. I just haven't seen a lot of creativity out of Microsoft first party in a while now. I'm not trying to knock them. I've got my Xbox Series X. I'm waiting for Fable. I'm hoping that it is a fully complete, stylized world, just like Horizon Forbidden West is. I'm hoping that it looks better than Horizon Forbidden West. Wouldn't it be funny if it didn't? That's the distinction I'm looking for when it comes to Microsoft first party. Great that they have all these studios. Great that they're pushing live service. Great that they have the highest rated and played multiplayer shooter in the world. But I do think that there's something to be said for diversity of content and creativity. And while PlayStation has that, they don't have the other end. And where Microsoft has the other end, they don't have the creativity and diversity of content. So hopefully the market can correct itself. I'm not sure what's going to happen. If you had to ask me right now, I would say that ultimately I think PlayStation is in a little bit of trouble, and we'll have to wait and see what happens in the future. Thanks for watching the video. Hit the like button and subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'll see you in the next one.